Okay, today what I'm going to do is a brief walkthrough on how to make a very basic button in Photoshop. So to get started, I'm going to either choose File New from File menu or Command N, which is the keyboard shortcut that you will see in the right-hand side of the File menu. I'm going to decide on a size. Usually when I make buttons, let's say 170 pixels wide by 75 pixels high. That sounds like a good size for a button. I'm working in pixels today in RGB color. And once I've got all that set, maybe I'll name my file ahead of time, button, and click OK. Okay, that looks like a tiny little thing. So to zoom in, I will hit Command plus on my keyboard, again, just so I can zoom in and see what I'm doing. And to do this, this is going to be a really basic button. So to do this, I'm going to choose rounded rectangle. And I'm going to set the fill color for my shape to something, I don't know, a little bit more visible. Red, RGB red, that's bright. Once I do that, I'm not going to put a stroke on the button unless the boss asks me to, and I'm just going to use the edges of my artboard or live area as a guide and draw out a button. I can always readjust it, like, oops, I see stuff is over the edge. I can always readjust it after I do this. That, and once I slap it into place, the properties panel opens up where if I decided, wow, that red is really bogus, I don't want that at all. So I can go in here and sample a different color and change out the color of my button. I'm going to choose orange because that's nice, a bright orange. Okay, like I said, if I am not happy, if I think, I don't know, I went over the edges of things, I can always use Edit and, well, Move tool first, Edit, Free Transform, or Command T, and I can just kind of pull these into place so they're not overlapping the edges of my live area. Okay, and if I'm happy with that, I'll hit the little check mark up here and start going to town. I'm going to close the properties panel for now because I really don't need to have it open. So to make the magic here, great, you know, I got a rounded rectangle. It's orange. What's so great about that? To make it look more like a button, if I double click on my layer, it will open up the layer styles panel. I'm just going to move this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing as I do it. My first choice of different layer styles, I mean, there's a ton of stuff over here in this menu over on the left-hand side. Blending options, which I'm going to ignore for now. Bevel and emboss is really what I'm interested in. And this is one of those like, ew, if I just check bevel and emboss, it'll automatically apply whatever I used last, or whatever the default setting is. So inner bevel is something I want. That looks kind of yucky. Smooth, for technique, no. I'm going to do chisel hard. And I think I'm going to change the depth and lower the size and turn soften down to 0 pixels because I don't want this to be soft at all. So here under shading, I've got gloss contour. Okay, it's all right. But next down below bevel and emboss, in that menu, there's something called contour. Contour changes the contour of my button. I can put like that's scary and looks like 1992, so I don't want that on there. But I can change out the way the edges of the button look and the way things are beveled. Anything to make it look more like a button. That is looking button-like. Wait, what was my other choice? Nah, less button-like. Okay, so we're going to do cone today. And like I said, that'll put this cone bevel around the edge of this. I'll go back to bevel and emboss, and this layer style thing only works if I'm clicked in any one of these things. I mean, yeah, I've got a bevel and emboss going on. I can tell by a little check mark here. And yeah, I've got a contour going on, and I can tell by a little check mark over here. But anytime I want to change any of these, I have to physically select it. So back to bevel and emboss, okay? Inner bevel, chisel hard. If I decide to do other things like emboss, no, emboss, okay, it's definitely going to be inner bevel. I can play with the size, you not. I can play with the depth and put that back there. I can change the highlight mode if I want to jack that up. Whoa, not to 100, definitely not. I can also play with the shadow mode from multiply to normal. I don't know, maybe I darken it a little. And here I can also change gloss contour is set to Cove Deep. I could do Cove Shallow. Oh, no way. That looks nasty. Okay, so I'm going to leave it the way it is. There are other things I could do to this. I could put an inner glow. If I had more space that I was working with around the edge, I could put a drop shadow on it. I'm going to ignore all these other things for now and just click OK. Okay, so I have something that looks like a button. I want to put text in here. I can't just grab my text tool and click in here because it's going to think I want to use the shape as a guide for my text area, and I don't want that. So I'm going to go down into the bottom of the layers panel and create a new layer, and that's going to become my text layer. Then I'm going to grab the text tool. I'm going to set my text color to, well, only web colors because we're making buttons for web. And I'm going to set my text color to white. Once I do that, I'm going to draw in a text box here. Anytime I put text on a button, I gotta, well, I'm eyeballing it, but I'm using those pink guides that pop up, help me line stuff up and center my text box within my button. I'm also going to do something else. This text is set to flush left. I'm going to change it to center. So it's going to center the text within the text box that I just made. I'm going to choose a font that is really plain, Arial regular, Arial bold. So Arial bold, this is probably like way too big, so let's put that down at around 14 point, which I might have to change later. So I'm at 14 point, which is going to work well on a button that's just under 200 pixels wide. And I'm going to start putting in the type, what I'm typing in here. Usually when I produce a button, I don't get asked to produce ones with upper and lower case letters. It's usually all lowercase or all uppercase. So I'm going to hit my caps lock key and get ready to put some text in here. And I'm just going to put something really basic in there. If I've got something that I think will fit better on 2 lines, I might do that. If I decide, okay, well, great, you know, I made 14-point type and it's not really big enough, I can select the text in the little font size doohickey up here and put it up to 22. I can still center it also within that area. If I decide I don't want to leave it, you know, just plain like that, I can also go to Window menu, open up my character panel, and start changing. I can change the font size from here. I can also change the height of the letters. And if I choose to, I could change the width of the letters as well. Okay, looks like letters to me. So I'm just going to grab my Move tool, use my little guides that pop up to center this. Okay, I'm eyeballing it for top to bottom. Okay, looks like there's an equal distance all the way around my text. If I'm pleased with it, I will close the character panel. And again, here's where that magic happens, layer styles. So once I open up the Layer Styles panel, there are some things I can do to this. Right now I'm going to ignore bevel and emboss. Don't really need it. Well, we can try. Definitely not. Yuck. So Inner shadow might be something that I want to put in there. It might be too much. I'm going to change it from multiply and set it to normal. I'm going to put the size down to 1. I just want to give my letters a little bit of depth without making it too. So, I'm working with something small. So, okay, distance is 1, size is 1, choke I'm ignoring. I'm going to leave the opacity settings the way they are, and I'm going to do one more. Sometimes instead of doing inner shadow, I'll do inner glow and set it to something dark, and it sort of does the same thing. I usually don't put a stroke on things, but in this case, it might work if I knock down the opacity and set it to the outside of the letters. I'm really going to knock down the opacity. Again, it's just to like kind of make the buttons look sort of like they're carved into the button, the way a button looks like on certain things, where it's got either like a raised number or a number that's kind of embedded into, if it's a plastic button, into the plastic. So I'm just doing things to make it look, I don't know, a little less boring. So if I'm happy with that result, then yeah, I am. Okay, looks good. Another thing I could do, outer glow. Instead of picking something light, I can pick something darker. Knock the size down, bump the spread up a little. Okay, good, looks good to me. I'm really done now. Click OK. Okay, and there you have your basic button. If you want to use it in something that's going to be web-based, save it as a PNG, actually print-based too. Save it as a PNG by going to File menu, Export, and I recommend Save for Web.